Other American TESOL Presents Friday webinars. I'm Shelly and this is Roscoe, and often we come every Friday. This time it's absolutely free and you get a certificate for attending. We talk about tech issues, non-tech issues, all of this thanks to American TESOL. We do post recordings, we blog about it, and you get all of the bookmarks and you can download the slides, so it doesn't get any better than that. Last week we talked about a ball. I was just talking about teaching with a ball, and I was just talking with the audience in the chat box about that and how that's been the most popular presentation this year. Over nearly 10,000 teachers since last week have 10,000 people from last week have downloaded that free presentation. So today we're doing a tech one, and today we're talking about blended learning, which is where you go and you teach online. You have your online learning spaces, but you also teach in the classrooms. And this can be different things. This could be, you could have a wiki, you could have an Edmodo, you could have your own website, you could have blogs. There's so many options when you want to teach online. You can have an Instagram account. So wherever you have your students go to continue the learning or to have their homework assignments and stuff, that's what we mean by a virtual learning environment. And today I'm going to show you how I get my students to participate and be very active in these environments. So today in the chat box, we encourage you to share what tools and how you teach blended learning, how you do both. So if you have best practices, feel free to share your examples in the chat box. You can get a certificate of attendance if you go to Afterwards by American TESOL, and it has this stamp and everything. For each webinar, if you go to bit.ly/ELT links, you can do it all lowercase if you want. But when you do that, then just click on the tab that says download your certificate. So I'm going to let my sidekick here go. And you may say, well, why does she have a pug? That's actually one of the ways that we make our online learning environments fun. And that's something we can do. We can have them be engaging. We can have them be fun. And I'll show you all of those very practical and ways that if you're not getting that much participation and you're not getting your students to do a lot of language practice, how you can do it. And you don't even have to grade, and they're still going to do it. And I'll show you all that. But first, let's talk about blended learning for those of you who may not be familiar with it. If you want, you can put your definition of blended learning or how you learn, how you teach blended learning, or you use this for teaching right now. Blended learning, I saw this on a flip lecture cap and I thought it was really good. It says join blended learning. I like this description. It's not really like a definition, but I love what it says. It says it joins the best features of in-class teaching with online learning and to promote or even support active independent learning. And I love that. I think that's the best definition that I have found for that. So I really love that. And the reason that I love that is because blended learning is active. Sometimes when we go online, we think, oh, it's like more of a lecture. It's easier to do something like that. It's easier to post a lecture up. But just like we are learning right now in this platform, and you can add to the discussion inside the chat box below. And already we have Natasha who says, blended learning, extending learning outside the classroom and online autonomous learning. Yes, very good. We have interaction there. I learn from you and you learn from me. And I think that's the best of blended learning. So how do we continue this spirit? Well, first of all, let's look at your online learning spaces. We have other different types of webinars that are related to online learning spaces. So I encourage you to go back. We have nearly over like 200 now. We have 200 of these video recordings, 200 slide shares, slides, and all of these are in the American TESOL blog. So I will share that with you, including the resources. So it's a really, really wonderful, I think it's really wonderful that American TESOL does this, and it's all free, by the way. So I'm going to give you the blog where you can find all of these. It's not the best place to find them, but they're all there, so that's why I want to do that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share that link with you. Whenever you have a classroom, I think Helena, she says a great point there. She says online or not online. I think this day and age, it's really, really, really important that we actually do have an online learning space. I think it's almost necessary. Now, if you can't, that's a different. If you don't have the site, they don't allow you to, and things like that. Well, that's totally different type of ball game. Then there's not much that you can really do when it comes to that. But just pausing for a sec. But when you do that, then you might have different options according to the age group. So depending how old that your learners are is going to determine what kind of learning environment do you have. So think about it. If you're teaching teenagers, what are some of the online learning platforms that you think in this particular picture are going to be the best options or that you've heard about? Well, I can tell you, Instagram is probably one of the good ones, or Wix or Wiki. That would be good for university students. That Facebook groups are often good for teaching adults. And as Peggy said, one of the things about the age of the students when you're teaching online is many of them require parent permission, as Peggy says in the chat, and also they're not allowed for students under the age of 13. So if you are going to be with students under the age of 13, what are going to be your options? Well, in my past, when I've taught language learners from 2 years old, I've done blended learning, 2-year-olds to 10-year-olds. And what I used was we had a wiki. I've used KidBlog. KidBlog, I think, is really fantastic platform for kids. I think it's one of the best ones. It's very protected. It's wonderful. EduBlogs allows for that as well. Or you can even have Edmodo. Edmodo and Schoology are made for various learners. And so these are the two platforms that teachers really love. And they're free and they're available on a mobile device. By the way, I just changed my mobile device. I finally got an iPhone because the Android was driving me crazy. But that's something that you can do is when you decide on a platform, and this is what Edmodo looks like. But we have other ones that talk about that talk about the actual online platform. And this is what Google Plus, this is what I use a lot of times when it's 13-year-olds or over. So I really do think that that's important, that you have it match your age group. And then I'm going to show you an example. This is the wiki that I had with my well, I did it for 4 to 10-year-olds. So you can see your learning environment. It's like your classroom. Your classroom isn't going to look the same. So when you're thinking of designing it, it is like a classroom. It's your online learning space. So when you're thinking of the design, you have to think of what's going to be interesting for your students. So here, what are the things that I've made it colorful? How do I make my online space appealing that kids want to visit there? Because ultimately, that's what you need your students to do. You need them to want to visit your online space. So something that I've used is a Voki. Why would I use a Voki? Because it introduces and says hi and makes funny noises, and it has a panda, and it's a funny looking. And we even had one with a bear. We have one with a robot. And this is how I welcome the kids to the playground, because I think of it as a digital playground. Now for adults, is this going to look the same? No. For adults, it's going to look at this. This is a bit different. It has threading. When you go through it, it shows you things like the handouts. It'll show you videos and things like that. So this has a lot more reading and things like that, but it's geared for adults. Whereas the wiki, very little reading. It's more spaced out. It has very simple things because we want it to match for our learning environments, for our age groups, their developmental needs, their language needs, okay? So think of that first. When you're designing your online platform, step in your student's shoes, think of their age and say, hey, am I going to find this interesting? Am I going to want to visit this place? So which web tools and apps are you going to use when assigning work? Because then when you do work, then some of the things that we need to look at is when you're having an app, when you're having this thing where whether or not this is, what do you call it? Let's say that you want to have, when you have activities, when you're having speaking, for example, then you want to use tools. Why do you want to use tools? Because they're fun. Your students will like them. Plus, they take on all the skills. When you use a tool, a free web tool, like, for example, Peggy was talking about digital storytelling, then you're going to find that it's multi, it goes to reading, it applies to listening, it integrates it all, so you want to use something like that. Natasha said something really great. She said, I've just discovered Google Forms for questionnaires and testing. Yes. So you want to use things like that where your students can actively participate when they're answering questions and things like that. Something like a Voki, when they make their own Voki and they put it up there. So when you're using a tool, and let's say this comes as a blog post, let's say the first thing you do is you want everyone to introduce themselves. What tool are they going to do to introduce themselves online? Well, if they're kids, they may use a Voki. If they're adults, maybe they use a S'mores. Maybe they use something like PictoChart. Maybe they use Haiku Deck. There's so many tools. There's 1,000 ways, and they're free, and they're exciting and wonderful to do this. So the tool you choose, make sure that it's embeddable on your learning platform. So in other words, if you're going to use something like an Animoto, then make sure that they are able to embed the actual video in either your Moodle, in your Edmodo, that it comes up. Because when it comes up, that's one of the reasons I like Google Plus, that you can embed it even in the blog, because the students, we're lazy in a way. We're lazy readers. So unless we can see where we can like click it or the picture or something, then we're probably not going to leave a comment. So that's one of the things to make it more playful. Make sure it's embeddable and you can see it. Multi-platform. And then the other things you can do is register. You can have security options. Like if you're with young learners, Facebook groups may not be the best thing because of the security options. So make sure that there's privacy options. You can make it public, private, things like that. Do they need to register when you're using a tool, and is it age appropriate? So we're going to see tools where you really don't have to register too. One of the things that I love to read is iLearnTechnology.com by Kelly Tinkley, and she's up for a BAMI Award. And the great thing about it is that she gives free tools a lot of the times, most of the time, not all the time, but a lot of times she also puts what they apply to. So one of my favorite things that Kelly does is this digital blooms. And what she does with digital blooms is she tells you if you want to have a lesson that applies understanding, then these are the free tools that you should use. And she gives you real lesson ideas. You can go to iLearnTechnology.com. You find a new wonderful web tool, and it's free most of the time. And then you see how she uses it with students, or she gives you suggestions. Another one, EdShelf.com. EdShelf.com is the Google for looking for free web tools and apps, or even paid ones. So you enter it and you say, I have 10-year-olds, and I need a free tool they don't register for, but I want them to do a presentation, an online presentation. And you put that all into EdShelf, and it comes up with all these places, and it also tells you whether it's free or not, whether you register or not, and it also shows you reviews from other teachers. So EdShelf.com, it's free and it's a great way. Ideas2inspire.co.uk for anything. If you decide to use Voicethread, let's say you found something on EdShelf and you're saying, okay, this is what I want to use, then you go to ideas2inspire.co.uk, and then you can click on a presentation. It'll give you 100 ways that teachers have done that, or 20 ways, or 30 ways. So let's say you're using Voicethread. You say, oh, I think Voicethread is going to meet my needs for this assignment. Then you go to Ideas to Inspire, and you can read 100 ways teachers have used from all over the world Voicethread. So it's really awesome. We know how to use tools. You've been using tools forever. When your institutions, and it doesn't matter wherever you are in the world, but you're a teacher, and this is something about teachers. When you start teaching, your classroom changes all the time. Your directors, your principals, they come to you and they say, okay, now you got to teach with the whiteboard. I mean, or we're no longer having chalkboards, okay? Now we're having white boards, white screens. So you teach with this. And guess what? You learn how to teach with it, right? Then they come up to you and they say, now we all have interactive whiteboards. You got to teach with it. And now they say mobile devices or iPads. It's all a tool. And every time you use a new tool, whether it be digital camera or flip tool or anything like that, it's still the tool. But we can do the same kind of things. We just have to adjust a little with the technology. So focus on the learning. So for example, when we're making videos and we made it with a flip camera, you can still do the same activities using your mobile camera. It's still a video project. It's not any, you have to adjust a little bit, but it's the same lesson. If you're getting your students to speak and you used to use a recorder, an old tape cassette recorder, then you can get your students to use Voki, because it's the same kind of lesson. The same lesson works. If you had little kids go and introduce themselves on voice recorders or interview themselves on voice recorders, they can do that on Voki. All they do is it's online in the computer. So don't get scared by the technology. We know how to adjust and teach with tools. Just remember the lesson plans that you've done that use those tools, and then make the switch and make adjustments for that technology. So when we're teaching online, these are the things we need, or our online environments. These are some of the things that we can do. Our online environments, we want them to encourage play, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Real world connections. When our students go, they should be able to say, hey, that applies to my life. That's why I'm learning this. Because if they don't have that connection, then they're not going to use it in their life. And that's what we need them to do. Experiment, for them to go on and feel like they can play, that they can explore, that they can do all of these great things, that they can also connect with their peers and learn from them, and also citizenship. So these are all things that need to happen. The first step, and I always say the 4 C's, is when your students go on their Edmodo, Wiki, anything like that, the first thing they need to do is make a connection. They need to connect with you and the other learners. That means introduce themselves. That's when they go on and they do a profile and they say, hi, how are you doing? And I'm this and I'm that. So that's something that we want them to do, and us too. Then we want them to communicate, collaborate, and then create. So what does this look like? Well, I'm going to show you. Also, there's theories behind this. There's principle of connectivism. That's how to learn online. And so that's something I encourage you to look at from Siemens and George, who did this. So the first way that they do connectivism, this is developing, making connections with other students, but also making the connections and building a community. So the first thing I do is what's called a 3-2-1 introduction. I learned this from Nikki Hockley. 3 things we should know about you. So these are the presentations. I say you have to do a presentation, and you have to tell us 3 things we should know about you, 2 places you love to visit, and 1 dream job you wish you had. What do you want to be when you grow up? Okay? This is what it looks like. Whenever I do this, and I've done this in Google+, I do this in Moodle, I've done this with blogs, I've done this activity so many times, and everyone loves it of all ages. It appeals to all ages. So that's the first step of connecting. And you can see here the tools that they've used. Some of them use pictures. Some of them use comics. Some of you use storyboards, s'mores, infographics. Yes, you can do this in classes too, Christina. So hi, Christina. Yeah, you can have them even use their own video. They can use popcorns. You can have them use one tool. I suggest to teachers, if you have low bandwidth, then what are you going to want to use? Well, you're probably going to want to use something like Pic Collage, or you might want to use something like them create a comic, because those are low bandwidth and they're just images, and images are pretty easy to embed in any platform. So these are things that, but then you can use video too. Now, Howard Rheingold, who I love and how I now shape all of my online learning environments, is with co-learning and pedagogy. So what he says is basically you have the skeleton, you have like a syllabus or a curriculum, like something you want to do, but your students go in and they fill that out. So for example, everything that we read, things that we study, I add to it, but also at the same point, my students do. And part of that is they have to have online bookmarking. And how do they have that? Well, I think the best online bookmarking is collaborative. So these are the collaborative bookmarking tools. What that means is that your students can add to the bookmarks, and I think that's really great. In our Moodle course, we are using Pinterest. That's what I use. And our students who have never used a web tool before pin to our Pinterest boards. We have over 200 that do this. And this is the second round that we've done that, and they are starting to get the hang of it, and they're enjoying it. We give them a rubric. They have to do things like, for example, not only do they put the tool and things that they're learning, but they have to, on the reflection part, they have to say how they specifically will use this, and they have to give the examples. They pin what they did with the tool. So with the Pinterest, they also pin, like if they find a cool comic tool or cool bird, book tool and stuff. Listly, I use that for a lot of, and a lot of people are getting used to Listly, so what I like about it is it's fast to do. Anybody can come, and when they have, you have to add your students to a lot of these. And when your students put a bookmark, then you do get to moderate it. It's not like they just put it up with everything else. They moderate it. They actually will have it to where you go and you have to say, yes, I allow this. So don't get panic, okay? When you have visual bookmarking, this is an example. So here's one, pearltrees.com. This is examples from my students in my recent mobile learning course. So I did this one. And then what they did here, you can see Nina, one of my students, and I didn't even know she was doing this. It was amazing. I went on and I found that she did it. So she has the bookmarks. She made a copy. You can even make a copy, or you can decide not to. And my other student did it as well. So they design it. Look how they design it. When you click one of these, it pops up. It's a mind map, and it pops up like this, so you can read it. It comes up as a normal post, and you can read the stuff, or you can look at the activities. So you can have it to where they can read online, and this is very good reading because it's a mind map. Now this is what Listly looks like. So list looks like a list, but the great thing is you can choose different types of icons. It allows you to choose from the web and the Creative Commons one, so it's really cool. You can change the top. You can curate it any way you want. Your students can rank it. One of the great things about Listly, if you use it well, then your students should be able to rank the sources and be able to tell you, teacher, I really love this. Or even better, when they add to it. Okay, so I'm going to show you something with Listly. Now, I should just do one on Listly. I tend not to do webinars on tools, though. When you see here where it says top helpers, and you can see one here, Peggy George, is part of that. But when you see this, that means that all of them have added to my list here. So I made this list, and then you see here, this is my good friend Miguel Mendoza from Venezuela, and you can see here it says who added it. It says added by Miguel. He's the one who added to beats and loops. Okay, so you can see that the students themselves, and then what you do is, well, I think that you have to teach the rating with your students. So then if you do use Listly, if this is the one you use, then you tell your students, okay, go and rate it, and let us know which are your favorite tools. So it can encourage your students because they want to be the favorite. They want to have the favorite bookmark. So it encourages them to go and do this. We want that kind of motivation. The other thing that I do, and this is based on Howard Rheingold, is I make peer group leaders. So when you look at this, you might say, oh, no, Shelley, this is just way too much work. It doesn't have to be. Why doesn't it have to be? Because I get peer group leaders. So my students, I propose at the beginning, and I allow anyone to be a peer group leader if they want to. I don't just say, you're a peer group leader. Silently and quietly, I'll go to certain people and be like, hey, I noticed if I don't see them. And then they do something like they get a badge, or I praise them a lot. I put their stuff up a lot. But one of the things that I do is I have the students in charge of it. So I break up into groups. Like here, this is the young learners group. These are for, I train a lot of teachers, so they're my students. So the teachers go. And then here we had Michelle Worgan. She was one of the leaders of that. So she's the one. Whenever things need to be posted, whenever they needed to do a discussion, whenever they wanted to do a hangout, Michelle would go and she would schedule these, or if somebody needed tutoring. So that helped me a lot because there was no way I was going to be able to help everyone. So get your students to help you. And if your students are constantly engaged and they're leaders and they feel so excited to do that, And one of the things that I learned this, I just tweeted something that went viral, and it was like, what's the best way that we learn? And in the bottom, it said that the top way that we learn is to teach others. So it's very valuable learning as well. I have them edit their documents online now. Natasha was saying earlier about Google. I use Google all the time. I love Google. It's free. A lot of people don't use Google. I don't understand why. It's free and wonderful. I love it. So look, they can go and they can edit their assignments together. They can edit a presentation together. They can offer feedback together. Your students can break up in groups of 4 online with Google. They can write an essay. They can even do the works cited, the research, all within Google. It gives them the citation. It even gives them the creative common images. And then they can go, all 4 of them, and they can tell each other, hey, I think you missed this grammar, or here, you can add the intro. And it's just so great that you can do these things online. So I recommend you learn them. They're free. One of the 2 things that I use all the time, that it's probably the tools that I use the most, I've used it for years, is Linoit and Padlet. These tools, you don't have to register. That's the great thing. You can have videos and images and text and pictures and all kinds of things. Your students, you just give them the URL. With Padlet, it's a sticky thing. With Padlet, you can give them a password, so that way you know that only your students go online. All they do is they type in the URL, they type in the password, they click, and they add. Look how beautiful that is. You have different backgrounds and templates. It's so easy. Your students don't have to register for an account. I usually have them, look, it says Amy and Jennifer. Does that give away any of their stuff? No, it doesn't. But it tells me Amy and Jennifer participated, so they can get, their grades or things like that. Another tool I absolutely love, and you can embed it as well, is Padlet. Padlet is collaborative. Oh, okay, so Alicia, what is Padlet ideal for? Everything. Padlet is a deal for everything. I love Padlet because you can have pictures. So for example, let's say you're having a discussion, and usually you would have it in the classroom, and you want, let's say you're having on this one, like you're asking a debate. You're saying, okay, in history, we're going to vote. How do you think, let's come up with ideas on how we can have people vote. How would you get your teams, or how would you get people to vote? And then they want to add ideas. Well, they could go on the Linoit or Padlet, or even on Padlet, and they all write. And then let's say, well, you have to find pictures of that as well. Or let's say you say, we're going to design a new restaurant. And at this new restaurant, we're going to have entertainment. We're going to have food. We're going to have we're going to have to decide how much the menu is. All these things, they can put all that. Let's say you have a current event you're studying. Let's say you're studying history. You can tell them, okay, let's go to the book and find one fact that relates to the Prohibition era, and also take a picture of it and post it online. Post it on our Padlet or post it on our Linoit, and they can do all of that with it. So there's a million. If you're watching a movie, then you can have them post like their comments and stuff on that while they're watching the movie. So it's like a back channel. So there's a million things you can do with this. Voicethread.com is another one I use very often. You do have to register, but if you have the teacher account, then you can give it very easy for your students to register. All of these are free, by the way, and they're also in your mobile devices. Linoit and Padlet are on all mobile devices. Linoit and Padlet are amazing. They're my favorite tools. But also Voicethread and Padlet you can get on your iPad, or your iPhone and stuff. I encourage play with the digital sandbox. So imagine playing in a sandbox. What do students do? They get a pail, they get cups, they get shovels, and they go in. You just leave it to them, and what you do. Yes, exactly, Christina. It's when you do it, and they have all these things. Some of them might take the cup and they might scoop. Some of them might make the castle fort. I mean, there's so many things. You just let them play, right? Well, that's what I let them do online. This is what it looks like. So, for example, here's an example. This is the task. Create a comic summarizing your feelings after 2 weeks taking our online course, or even our face-to-face course. And then grab a tool. I use Symbaloo. So I embed this, and I say, click on any of these. These are the comic tools that I think are wonderful that I want you to use. So they go, and maybe they try Garfield, and then they make their comic with that. Let's say they don't like Garfield. They say, oh, I didn't really like Garfield. Well, then they want a superhero. They'll use this comic one. It doesn't matter as long as they complete the assignment. So that I get them to play, I get them to learn the tool that way. It's a simple task, and that's how I design the task. Okay, I do this in Moodle. I did this in Wiki. That's how I got him to do it with the Wiki as well. So there's so many things that you can do with it. How else do you keep your online spaces active? You can have image caption contests. You can post multimedia, memes, fill in the blank, live events. This is what it looks like. So let's say you take a picture, and you can do this in Instagram, you can do this on Facebook, you can do this in Google Communities, any Edmodo you could do this. So you take a picture. Here, they have an example. Working in a garage as a mechanic, is that your dream job? And look at the comments. The students say in the bottom, they fill this out. And they talk about their dream job. So you can have this where they're filling in the blank instead, where you say something like, on a Saturday, my favorite thing to do. Or you could say, if I were to open a restaurant, this is the food I would make. Or if I were to be the president, this is the first policy I would change. If I had 3 wishes, this is, and then this is, and they fill it in. They go to the comment section and they can add videos and all of this stuff. So this is a way that you keep it active. They really love this. If you're teaching language, then what do? You make it a question with the conditional or with the prepositional phrase, or you get them to use the language that way. So it's a way of also getting them to practice the grammar in your class. So let's just say you taught about the past tense. Well, when you're doing this question, what are past tense questions you can ask them that they're going to fill out? Now, why do we use a picture? The reason we use a picture is because your students find that engaging. They think that's pretty and nice and good. If it's kids you're teaching, then you're going to put a cartoon, and the cartoon's going to say, what did you do yesterday? And then you can have them, you can put an example. You can say, yesterday I played, or yesterday, or my favorite toy, whatever it is that you're practicing. You can do visual prompts as well. This is one of my favorite ways. Make it interesting. You want your students to engage, and that's one of the things to use. If you're teaching college, Alicia, I wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend Google Communities if you can use it. Or Edmodo. Try Edmodo Schoology. A lot of students really love these kind of platforms. They're very safe, and they like them. Or even like I really love Google Plus. I think Google Plus is just wonderful for all things, except for young learners. For young learners, Edmodo, of course, and Schoology, I think. And Peggy's right, and she's a good expert. And Peggy just said a great thing on this. It is easy to use Wikispaces and PBWorks. Peggy says, drawings, take pictures of their drawings and post them. Yes, that's perfect and wonderful. So one of the things that, what does a peer group leader do, or what can you get your students to do every day? After they see examples of you making the writing prompts, and you can see these very nice examples here. One promotes dialogue, one promotes essay writing in a way. I've done chain stories online where one after the other, they have to fill in a story. There's so many things you can do online with your online learning environment. Then they make it, exactly what Peggy said. They take the drawing, they make the visual prompt, and every day one of the students is in charge of that. You no longer are in charge of that. You just started off, you give them an example so they know what to do, and then every day that's one of their leadership assignments. They have to go and they have to post the writing prompt or the visual challenge. As I said, I use Google for everything. I think it's wonderful. You can even grade with it. They have rubrics you can grade with. They have Flubaroo where your students can actually take an online quiz and you get it graded automatically. It automatically grades it according to your answer sheet. So there are easy ways to also, and quick ways. If you learn Google tools, you will save so much time. I love them. I think they're free. Get parents to sign a respectable use policy. It used to be an acceptable use policy form. In my Spanish, my online courses, I have to change it now because now it's called respectable use. But anyway, you can see lots of examples. What it is it's just how parents go and how they give you permissions. You say, first of all, why we're using this technology, how we're going to use it, and then your parents will say something like, yes, I will allow my child to have pictures of them or videos of them. You can find tons of resources for this particular one. The thing about it is that when you use these resources, they're going to be a little bit different this time. And the reason why is because I have tools for all of this that I've done a lot of times. So it's best to just go to Pearl Trees and to be able, that's where you can get all of these particular types. So you can go to my Pearl Trees. If you go to pearltrees.com, Shelly Terrell, then you can find research for all of this. It is a Pearl Tree, so you can see how this looks. You can even copy them because all of mine are copyable, I believe. And then play around, see what it is that you need, what you're interested in most. If you teach with blogs, then go to the blogging one and you're going to see how to make that more engaging. You can always get with me at Twitter or go to, if you want your certificate, just simply go here. Thank you, Peggy, so much for putting those links there. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put up the slide share on there as well. But you can download the slides, and Peggy had showed us that before, the link for that. So I'm going to go ahead and put that too, but you can get it to all the presentations. Thank you so much for being here. I'm not sure what we're going to learn next week. It's somewhere on there. If you go to the bit.ly address, you're definitely going to be able to find it. So get your certificate. Thank you so much. If you have any specific questions, you can get me on Twitter. You can always play this again. It's recorded. On Sunday, we do have a mini-con, so thank you, Peggy.